Okay, so today I want to talk to you all about readmes for your project, expectations, how to go about writing a readme, and then also talk about submitting your project. So to begin, readme is part of your submission. Again, not due tomorrow for the presentation, but due just the day before you present your project to me at our project review. So what is a readme? I have linked a bunch of examples here, so feel free to take a look at that. But pretty much, and let me use this as an example, every GitHub repo has a README file. And what that README file is for, it is basically what renders on the front page of GitHub. So the README is actually very, very important because if you're putting like links of your GitHub projects on your portfolio, the first thing anyone will see is going to be a README. And because of that, it's important to be picky about what you present on your README. So in terms of what kind of content should belong on your README, I would say actually very, very similar content as you have on your presentation slides. It doesn't have to be technical. I would say your README can actually be a little bit more technical than your presentation slides, just because there are higher chances that someone who is technical will see your README, but you don't want it to be like your notebook copied and pasted. By technical, I mean like in the future when you're working on machine learning models, maybe you have a little bit more commentary about why you're doing what you're doing. But for this project, I think the content can be very, very similar on your slides as well as on your README. So what you're going to create as a group is this over here. For a project, again, structure content-wise can be very similar to the presentation. The one thing I wanted to talk about for this, though, is thinking about how you want to present your material in a README format versus slide format, and then also how you even format all of these things. So first of all, I think I've mentioned this a bunch, especially with your presentation notebook, but for your README, more than anything, you want to maximize clarity. I would say that this is very subjective. I've seen like opposite ends of the README spectrum. I've seen very, very long, detailed READMEs, and I've also seen very short, concise READMEs. So it's really what you're more comfortable with putting together. For the most part, I don't think a README has to be more than like half of this length. I think that is the easiest way to make things very, very clear. If you just write your main points, your conclusions, a little bit of an introduction at the start, maybe some future work at the end, that should be good. But you really, really want to maximize clarity. Because this is the thing that people who will click through your portfolio will see first. I want to share an interesting statistic that I heard from some technical recruiters. I heard from a technical recruiter that when he's looking at folks or applicants' projects, he spends on an average 15 seconds looking at a single README. And so you want it to be eye-catching, you want it to be clean, easy to read as well, because he mentioned that if there's so much text and not too much formatting, let's say like your entire README is like paragraphs that look like this, he's like, I can't even muster the energy to read all of that. And that's like their words, not mine. So I would say you want to be clear and concise in terms of material. Make use of formatting as much as possible. Use headlines like this. Make use of bolds, italicize, bullet points, just to make things as clear as possible. Additional content that can be in your README that isn't in your slides. Maybe you want to link to either of your GitHub profiles. You can do that. You can hyperlink things, and I'll talk about how to hyperlink things in a little bit. If you have multiple notebooks, multiple final notebooks, or if you have just a lot of files on your repo, it's good to have a section in your README just explaining what is in each file. So if you find yourself having maybe more than like 3 notebooks and you don't think it's as clear where people should go to see what code, maybe just write like a little bullet point list of what's in what in your README. But yeah, I've linked a few examples here, so feel free to take a look. There are a bunch of different examples. I think these first 3 are examples from this same project. This is another one that I wanted to show you all because this is a newer feature in GitHub where on the README, you can actually see based on the headers, you can actually automatically go to a specific section in your README. So that actually does lend itself to longer README. So this is an example of a longer README, but this is a project that we haven't gotten to yet. But you can also have like a table of contents. And so you would actually just hyperlink the specific sections in your README. And there are tutorials online on how to do that. If you want to do that, Google it and ask me if you have any questions. Okay, so this README, how do you create this? What is this written in? It's actually a different language. The language is actually Markdown. So very, very similar to the cells that you have within your notebook. The entire README.md is a Markdown file. So because it's a Markdown file, I've linked this cheat sheet for a bunch of syntax, and I want to run through some of the important ones to begin. So first of all, you have your different headings. So you have H1 to H6, exactly the same way in which you're doing your headings in your Jupyter notebooks, or as you should be. Use the pound sign. So this will show H1, H2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Next, bullet points. Bullet points, there's actually several ways to go about it. You can use asterisks, minuses, or pluses. Those are all bullet points. And then if you want something to be numbered, you can just type in the number and automatically format it in a numbered way. URLs are going to be useful. If you want to link to your Jupyter notebook in your README, you actually cannot use the local URL, or don't use the local URL because that won't work. Hopefully you would have been pushing your notebook up to GitHub. And so the link that you want to use to direct to your notebook on GitHub will be, for example, if I want to take a look at this notebook here, let's say this is one of your submission notebooks, you want to take this URL, and this URL will be what you link to if you want to link your notebook from your Markdown, from your README. Let's see, what else? Images. So as you saw in this example, I think one of the examples I've had, you can put images on your README. Sometimes, especially because in your README, you should be telling people what your conclusions for this project were. And because for this project specifically, the product is mainly visualizations, you might want to put some of your visualizations on your README. The syntax for that is over, where is it? Images here. So this is images. They're just putting this little logo here, but this is the syntax for doing images. I will tell you by default, the images will be their original size. So if you, I don't know, are using a gigantic screen and you're screenshotting it and you're putting it on your Markdown, the images will blow up. So to adjust the size of the image, look up how to do it in HTML. HTML is actually supported in README. So if you're already familiar with HTML and you want to format your stuff in HTML, feel free to do so, but not necessary. So yeah, I would say on your README, things to avoid. Try not to put any code on your README. There's no need to put any code on your README. I would say in the future, maybe if you like create something very like new and profound, then sure, you can put that in your README if you want to show it off, but there shouldn't be any code in your README. But if you want to do code in your README in the future, you're going to use backticks. Maybe you want to do this within your final notebooks. It takes all the same syntax. If you want to have like code blocks or anything, and the code blocks actually will like show up like this, you just use triple backticks for entire blocks of code. Or if you want something to look like this, like let's say you just are referring to a specific variable or something, you just have one set of backticks around it. So I think those are the main things. If you want to put tables, you can in your README. I would say not necessary for this project, but maybe in some of your Markdown cells on your within your final notebooks, you can throw in some tables if you like. But I think those are the main things. Cool. Any questions about the README? All right. Well, the README, I would say very, very subjective. Many different projects have different styles, and also for in terms of content and structure, those will be something that I will be giving my comments on when you're presenting your project to me. Okay,
Do the
Justin.
visualizations you create count as images?
You mean in
your Jupyter notebook? Do the visualizations that are created from the code count as images?
Oh,
so then you have
okay.
to click on them and save them somewhere?
Yes, that's correct. They do not automatically become image files. So if you're using Matplotlib, there's a function called savefig, which allows you to export your what am I trying to say? Export your visualization as like a PNG or I think a JPEG. Honestly, if you take screenshots, I don't care. I actually take screenshots for all my visualizations because it's just easier for me. But if you want to do it like the more code way, you can use .savefig and it'll output a, let me see if there's an example. Yeah, I guess not. But you just have to put in the file name here. You'll call it like, I don't know, visualization1.png, and it'll do that.
So when you put that in a README, do you have to code it like you do HTML and reference the image? So it then has to end up
Yes.
to end up in a folder in your GitHub repo that it has to call, otherwise it won't show up.
Yep, that's correct. So as you can see here, there's this GIF here and there's a GIF file here. So okay, awesome.gif.
So all the visualizations have to be saved as essentially somehow saved as an image file, and then they have to be in the repo in order for them to be called correctly by the README file.
That's correct. That's correct. So
now,
if I actually
now when you push that, when you're doing this locally, you're working on your README file, does it maintain those links when you push it back?
The links are all relative links. So if I go into this and I show you the awesome, I guess there's two ways to do it. In this way, they actually link to the image on GitHub. But if it was just awesome.gif, that will work as well because it does take relative path.
Okay, so if you use the relative path, like you do when you do PD read
that's
CSV,
correct, exactly.
It'll take whatever path that is once you push it back into the repo.
Yep, that's right.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions regarding? I'm going to talk next about different ways that you can go about creating this README next. So any questions about, I don't know, content or structure of a README first? Okay. So let's talk about different ways you can create your README. I will say that, okay, let me go to my, what did I call it before? Microsoft Movie Analysis. Okay, so this is my one that I created at like, what, 2 weeks ago, last week. And a couple ways that you can create a README. One, you can do it on GitHub itself. I will say that this one will be more prone to merging issues. Because if you're creating something online and most of your work is being created locally, when you're trying to merge them together, you likely run into issues. But this is I would say one of the easier ways to do it. You can literally just go in and edit and put in all of your markdown code there. Let's cancel changes for now. If you're doing it that way, don't forget that, and it also does depend on like what branch you're doing this on. Don't forget, if you're changing something on the GitHub site itself, you have to do a git pull locally just so you can merge those changes in so that it's so that they are aligned. A couple other ways to go about this. Let me pull up Jupyter Notebook. Let's see, I'm gonna pull up a random project for now. Let's go with this one. Okay. So you should already have a README file in your repo, because when we created our project repo, we initialized it with a README. So you should already have a README file. But if for some reason you do not, you can actually just create one on here. So you can go new text file, and then you just have to follow the name readme.md. MD again stands for markdown. And okay, that already exists. So I'm going to do readme1. And then automatically it'll know to format everything in README. So you can actually create it like this in Jupyter as well. So this is a way to do it in Jupyter. I'm actually going to delete this because I already have a README here. So this is an example of one of my readmes. You can see I have like, it's structured. I like to structure things numerically, data, EDA. This one just so happens to be like a recommendation system, and these are some of my graphs. So this is just an example. I want to show you all another way to do it if you have a code editor. So let me pull that up real quick. All right, so you have a code editor, and again, this really depends on, hold on, I'm gonna reshare it real quick after I resize everything nicely. All right, so my code editor of choice is Atom. And again, I like Atom because it's very no frills. You can use Visual Studio Code, PyCharm, Spider, there's a bunch. Anything that lets you edit code will work. So in this case, most code editors should recognize what a markdown looks like. And I'm pretty sure most code editors have this function where you can actually preview what it looks like side by side. So I'm writing my markdown here. If I want to like change anything here, you can see that it should automatically update. Okay, hold on, let me relaunch this. In Atom, I think it's Control-Shift-M, there we go. And then this will automatically update to track the changes that you're making. So you can see all the exclamation points coming up. So I actually always do my markdowns in some sort of code editor just because I like to see the side by side. I guess another note since we're here, you can see that all of my images start with, let me zoom in here as well. All of my images start with images / whatever. That's just because if you have more than like, I would say more than 3 images that you want to put in your markdown, I do recommend putting it into a folder. So I know it's pretty small to see probably on your screen, but here I have an images folder with all of my plots. It just makes it neater such that when I'm on the GitHub page, let me use this as an example, similar to this. Oh wait, let me reshare my screen to the GitHub. So similar to this, if I didn't have my zip data in a data file, this front page would be like another 11 files long. So in a similar vein, if you have a bunch of images, maybe put into an images file, just so it'll be a little bit more organized. So those are the different ways that you can do your README. If anyone has any issues with that, let me know. I would say like an even easier version to do your README if you're like, if you're not about like doing every, I quit the Jupyter Notebook on. Jupyter Notebook, okay. This one, okay. So let's just say that you are, you don't wanna like use a text editor or anything. You can actually create your entire markdown here. Markdown 1, so on and so forth, and just copy and paste this code. Because if it works in a Jupyter Notebook here, you can just copy and paste that into its own markdown file. That will also work. So you can definitely do that too. Cool. Any README questions? All right, so if you have seen the rubric, README actually just comes under the one like GitHub repository section, so not a big stress point. This will be your very first README that you're ever creating, so use that as like a starting point and we'll learn from there. Any questions before we talk about submission processes? Okay, so on your page, this is what it looks like. You will need to submit your project in 2 different places for me to grade it. I don't know why it's that way. It's just set up that way, but you got to do it this way. So I'll talk about the easier one first, GitHub repository URL. I've also set it up such that only 1 person per group should need to submit the assignment. If you want me to double check, let me know. I'm more than happy to check if your assignment is in or not. But in terms of due date, again, the due date is the day before you want to have your review. So if you're having your review on Monday, everything should be in by the weekend because I actually review everyone's project a little bit in the morning. So try and get your work done at least like the night before. So in the morning of your review, I can at least look through everything and make sure everything is there so that when we go through it together, I'll also have my version there. So first thing you need to submit is your GitHub repository URL. So 1 person per group needs to do this. Actually, I'll double, yeah. 1 person per group needs to do this. Just click start assignment, copy and paste your GitHub URL, and then you're done. That's the first one. Let's leave this. Next, you'll have to submit PDFs of your project. There are actually submission instructions here, but I'll talk about the same things here. So on the actual project prompt page, I guess, you also have to submit your assignment there. So click on Start Assignment, and okay, see, submission will count for everyone in your phase 1 group. So that means this submission is 1 person per group. I'll double check for the other one later as well. But anyways, you have to submit PDFs of 3 things. So first, a PDF of your presentation. So whether you're doing it on Google Slides or on PowerPoint, there is definitely a way to export your presentation as a PDF. So do that, choose file, choose your presentation, and that'll be done. Another thing is you have to submit a PDF of your README. So the way that you can do that, one easy way to do that is, let's just say this is my GitHub repository. One easy way to do it on Chrome or Mac, I don't know which one it is, but if you right click and do print, something like this will show up, and this works for me. As long as I can see the content of your README, that's good enough. So make sure that it's, the content is clear. From here, on a Mac at least, you can do open PDF in preview, and then it'll something else has popped up on my screen, but you can basically save that. So that saves a PDF version of this entire web page, which is what I need to see. So the last thing that you need to submit is PDFs of your Jupyter notebook, which I know if you have many notebooks can be a little finicky, but that is the way that we see your work. So if you can, in your notebook, I think if you do right click print, that's one way to do it. And then you can save this PDF again. It's not currently working on my computer because I kind of messed up my own Jupyter notebook. I need to just fix that. But for most of you, you should be able to do this. You should be able to do download as, and then I think there's a PDF somewhere here, PDF. So on mine, I think it doesn't work because I changed a bunch of settings on my own that I shouldn't have. But I think, yeah, for most of you, this should work. If not, just do the same print thing. I just need to be able to see all of your code, and that'll be good enough. So if you do download as notebook, everything will show up really nicely. You have to do it for each notebook. I don't need you to combine. If you have like 10 notebooks, I don't need it to all be combined into one PDF. As long as it's clear in terms of file name, what is what, that's good enough for me. So those are the 3, did I say 3? Yeah, those are the 3 PDFs. Notebooks, README, and then your presentation. And then on this page, they do allow you to add multiple files. So just do that, and then you're all good. You can actually resubmit stuff. So let's say during one submission, you do like maybe 3 out of 5 of your PDFs. I can see every submission. So the next time around, you can just submit your other 2. And also, if there are different people submitting things, I will see everything. So don't need to worry about like having one submission with every latest thing. So for example, if someone has their review on Monday and your project partner has a review on Friday, between Monday and Friday, if you're deciding to make any changes before the Friday review, more than welcome to do that. Any questions about the submission? I understand it's like a little bit of extra work for that, but it's just the way we have to do it.
So there's no way to take a Jupyter notebook and make it into a PDF?
I mean, the download.
If you have, like say in my case, I have Acrobat on. I do have Adobe Acrobat on here, I think. Maybe I don't. Maybe I
yeah, I mean, if you know like your own way to create, because this is technically a web page. So if you have a quicker way to turn a web page into a PDF, yeah, just do that.
So if you can make it, so each notebook has to have its own PDF, or can you in theory put all of the notebooks into one PDF?
You can do that too. I just need your files. I don't care what order they're in. I mean, preferably they're not out of order, but I just need to see all of your code in a submission. How many different files you have doesn't matter to me.
Okay.
Cool. Anything else?
Oh, how do you turn PowerPoint slides into a PDF? Is there instructions for that?
Yeah, so if I have a Google Slides, it's pretty straightforward. I believe you just do download and then PDF. PowerPoint has something similar. I don't have PowerPoint on my computer, but I
Okay.
know that if you do like file and I think export, there should be an option
Right.
for PDF or like
Let's see.
PowerPoint to PDF.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, there's an
select
export.
file,
Okay.
export. Mhm.
Yeah, create a PDF. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Nice. All right, we don't need this. Any other questions? Cool. Well, this time tomorrow, you'll be presenting your projects. I'm very, very excited to see them. During your presentations, I will be taking notes. Because I think there are only going to be 4 presentations, I'll also leave room in between for questions. And yeah, if anyone has any questions about the presentation, don't forget it should be between 5 and 8 minutes long. You'd be surprised, a lot of people go like very, very long on this presentation. But try to keep it under 8 minutes. I won't be cutting anyone off just because we have the time. But it is a good practice to keep things concise. So I'll be taking notes on your presentation and for each of your project reviews. And don't forget to start scheduling your project reviews if you haven't yet. During your project reviews, I'll start off the project review with comments about your presentation. All right, any last questions before we call out for the day?
Oh, one last one with the Readmes. The number sign, does that also dictate how big the text is? So 1 is the largest, 2 is the next. So the more you put it, the smaller the text is?
That is correct. So
okay.
Yeah, it kind of explains here. Headers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It'll come up like this.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, mark that as something that's pretty fun to play around with. All right. Any final questions before we close out for the day? Cool. I look forward to your presentations tomorrow. Tomorrow before that, I'll just randomize the 4 presentation order. And you'll see that right before we hop on. If anyone has a preference for order of presentation, Slack me, let me know. Happy to make whatever order you want. So yeah. During the presentations, everyone must contribute to the presentation, by the way. So it cannot be just one person presenting everything. So one person prepare to share your screen and then just practice your presentation and coordinate with each other how you're going to present the project. All right, well, if there's nothing else, I will leave you all to it. If anyone has any questions, you know that you can Slack me, but I look forward to seeing your presentations tomorrow. Cool. Have a good rest of your day, everybody. Bye.